You are not placed here by accident, and the feeling inside you that refuses to accept an average life is not random. It is a signal, a quiet but persistent reminder that your existence carries intention. Before anything else, before success, before recognition, before the visible outcomes, you must understand why you were chosen. Because when you lose sight of that reason, you start chasing things that were never meant for you, and you begin to measure your worth by standards that were never designed for your path. But when you are anchored in your why, everything changes. Your decisions become clearer, your confidence becomes stronger, and your direction becomes undeniable. Being chosen does not always feel like privilege in the beginning. Often it feels like pressure. It feels like being misunderstood, like walking a path others cannot fully see. It feels like carrying a vision that hasn't yet materialized while everyone around you questions your steps. That is the cost of purpose. Because those who are chosen are not called to follow noise, they are called to create meaning. And meaning is never built in comfort. It is built in moments of doubt, in seasons of isolation, and in times when quitting feels easier than continuing. Your why is your anchor in those moments. It is the reason you keep going when motivation fades. It is the force that keeps you standing when everything around you tries to pull you down. Without it, you drift. With it, you become unstoppable. Because purpose gives pain a reason. It transforms struggle into preparation. It turns setbacks into lessons. And suddenly, what once felt like obstacles begin to look like stepping stones, guiding you towards something greater. You must also understand that your why is not about proving something to the world. It is about becoming who you were created to be. Too many people waste their energy trying to impress others, trying to fit into spaces that were never meant for them. But when you know why you were chosen, you stop shrinking yourself to meet expectations. You stop asking for approval. You stop explaining your vision to people who cannot see it. Instead, you start building, quietly, consistently, and with conviction. There will be moments when your path feels uncertain. Moments when the results are not visible, when the effort feels unnoticed, when the progress seems slow. In those moments, your why becomes your compass. It reminds you that you are not working for temporary validation. You are building something that requires time, patience, and resilience. And that kind of work is never rushed. It is developed through persistence, through discipline, through the decision to continue even when the outcome is unclear. You were chosen because you have something to carry that others do not. A perspective, a strength, a calling that is uniquely yours. And that uniqueness is not something to hide. It is something to protect and develop. Because the moment you fully embrace why you are here, you stop living reactively and start living intentionally. You begin to move with purpose, speak with clarity, and act with confidence. And that is where real transformation begins. Not when the world recognizes you, but when you recognize yourself and step fully into the reason you were chosen. Authority is not something you wait to be handed. It is not granted by approval, applause, or external validation. It is something you decide to step into. The moment you understand this, everything begins to shift. Because the world does not define your authority. You do. And when you keep waiting for permission, you unconsciously give your power away to people who were never meant to control your path. From a young age, you are taught to seek approval, to ask before you act, to wait until someone says you are ready. But the truth is, readiness is rarely announced. It is claimed. And those who carry real authority are not the ones who were told they could lead. They are the ones who chose to lead before anyone recognized it. They moved before they felt fully prepared. They spoke before they felt fully confident. And in doing so, they discovered something powerful. Action creates belief, not the other way around. When you rely on permission, you limit your potential to someone else's understanding of you, and no one sees your full capacity except you. No one feels your calling the way you do. So when you wait for validation, you are asking someone else to confirm something they cannot fully comprehend. That is why it feels frustrating. That is why it feels slow, because deep down you already know what you are capable of, but you hesitate, hoping someone else will say it first. Authority from within is different. It does not shout for attention. It does not beg for recognition. It moves with quiet certainty. It shows up consistently. It makes decisions without constantly second-guessing. And most importantly, it does not collapse under doubt, because it is not built on external opinions. It is built on self-trust. And self-trust is developed through action. Every time you follow through on your word, every time you take a step despite fear, every time you honor your vision, you strengthen that internal authority. There will always be voices that question you. People who doubt your direction, your timing, your choices, but those voices only have power if you allow them to. Because when you are grounded in your own authority, you listen differently. You observe, but you do not absorb everything. You take what aligns and you leave what does not. You understand that not every opinion deserves influence over your life, and that clarity protects your progress. The challenge is that stepping into your own authority requires responsibility. You can no longer blame circumstances, delays, or lack of support. You must own your decisions, your growth, and your results. And that can feel uncomfortable because it removes excuses. It demands discipline. It asks you to show up even when you don't feel like it. But that is the price of true power. Not control over others, but control over yourself. When you stop asking for permission, you stop shrinking. You stop over-explaining. You stop waiting for the perfect moment. Instead, you start creating it. You begin to act with intention, to move with purpose, to trust your instincts even when the outcome is uncertain. And over time, something shifts. The same people who once questioned you begin to respect you. The same doors that once seemed closed begin to open. Not because the world suddenly changed, but because you did. And that is the truth most people overlook. Authority is not given after you prove yourself. It is revealed when you decide to believe in yourself first. Struggle has a way of convincing you that something is wrong. It whispers that you are off track, that you are not strong enough, that maybe this path was never meant for you. But what if the struggle is not a warning sign? What if it is confirmation? What if every challenge you face is not blocking your way, but proving that you are moving in the exact direction you are meant to go? The truth is, nothing meaningful is built without resistance. Strength does not come from ease. Clarity does not come from comfort. Growth does not come from staying where everything feels safe. It comes from tension, from pressure, from moments that stretch you beyond what you thought you could handle. And that is why your struggles are not obstacles, they are evidence. Evidence that you are evolving, that you are being prepared, that you are stepping into something greater than your current version can fully contain. Think about it. If your path were easy, if everything worked out instantly, if there were no setbacks or resistance, you would never develop the depth required to sustain success. You would never build resilience, you would never learn how to navigate uncertainty, and without those qualities, even if you reached your goal, you would not be able to hold it. Struggle is what builds capacity. It expands you, it forces you to grow into the person who can carry what you are asking for. There is also a deeper layer to your struggles. They reveal you to yourself. When everything is going well, it is easy to feel confident. It is easy to believe in your strength. But when things fall apart, when plans fail, when results do not match effort, that is when your true character is exposed. That is when you discover how you respond under pressure. Do you retreat or do you rise? Do you give in to doubt or do you lean into determination? Those moments are not just challenges, they are defining points that shape who you become. The problem is, most people misinterpret struggle. They see it as a stop sign instead of a signal. They assume difficulty means they should quit, when in reality it often means they are closer than they think, because the closer you get to something meaningful, the more resistance you will feel. Not because you are unworthy, but because growth demands transformation, and transformation is never comfortable. You must also understand that struggle refines your focus. It forces you to prioritize what truly matters. It strips away distractions. It challenges your commitment. Because it is easy to say you want something when it's convenient, but when it becomes difficult, when it requires sacrifice, when it tests your patience, that is when your desire is proven. And that proof is not for the world, it is for you. It solidifies your intention, it strengthens your resolve. There will be moments when you feel tired, when progress seems invisible, when the weight of everything feels overwhelming. In those moments, it is easy to question your path. But instead of asking why it is so hard, ask what it is teaching you. Ask how it is shaping you. Because every struggle carries a lesson, and every lesson carries power. And the more you learn, the more equipped you become. When you begin to see struggle differently, you stop fearing it, you stop avoiding it, you start embracing it as part of the process. Not because it is easy, but because it is necessary. You understand that every setback is temporary, but the strength you gain from it is permanent. And that perspective changes everything. Because now, instead of seeing obstacles in your way, you start seeing evidence that you are on your way. The way you speak is not just communication, it is creation. Every word you repeat, every sentence you affirm, every thought you allow to take shape through language begins to influence the direction of your life. Long before results appear, long before others recognize your growth, your words are already setting the foundation. That is why speaking like you already believe it is not arrogance, it is alignment. It is choosing to match your voice with the future you are building instead of the fears that try to hold you back. Most people wait for evidence before they change the way they speak. They wait for success before they sound confident. They wait for clarity before they speak with certainty. But that approach keeps them stuck in a cycle where nothing shifts, because your words follow your beliefs and your beliefs follow your repeated language. If you constantly speak in doubt, you reinforce hesitation. If you constantly speak in limitation, you reinforce fear. And over time, those patterns become your reality, not because they are true, but because they are repeated. Speaking like you already believe it requires a decision to stop narrating your life through uncertainty and start declaring it with intention. It means replacing "I hope this works" with "I am building something that will work." It means shifting from "I'm not ready" to "I am growing into readiness." These are not empty phrases. They are signals to your mind, directing your focus, shaping your behavior, and influencing the actions you take daily. There's also power in how you speak about yourself when no one else is listening. Because those private conversations are the ones that shape your identity. When you consistently tell yourself that you are capable, disciplined, focused, you begin to act accordingly. Not instantly, not perfectly, but progressively. Your actions start to align with your words. And that alignment builds momentum. It creates a cycle where belief strengthens action and action reinforces belief. The challenge is that speaking with belief often feels uncomfortable at first. It can feel unnatural, even dishonest, especially when your current situation does not match your desired outcome. But that discomfort is part of the process. Because you are not speaking based on what is, you are speaking based on what you are becoming. And becoming always requires you to step beyond your current reality before it visibly changes. You must also be mindful of the environments you are in, because the way others speak can influence the way you think. If you are surrounded by constant negativity, doubt, and limitation, it becomes harder to maintain a language of belief. That is why awareness is critical. You do not have to absorb every opinion, every fear, every limiting statement around you. You can choose what you internalize. You can choose what you repeat. And that choice protects your mindset. When you begin to consistently speak with belief, something shifts. You start carrying yourself differently. Your decisions become more decisive. Your presence becomes more grounded. People begin to sense your confidence even before you fully feel it yourself. Not because you have all the answers, but because you have clarity in your direction. And that clarity is powerful. Over time, your words stop feeling like effort and start feeling like truth. What once required conscious intention becomes natural expression. You no longer have to remind yourself to speak with confidence. You simply do. Because your identity has evolved to match the language you have been practicing. And that is when real transformation takes place. Because you are no longer speaking from where you are. You're speaking from who you are. Becoming waiting to feel ready is one of the most convincing illusions that holds people back. It feels logical, responsible, even wise to delay action until confidence arrives. But readiness is not a moment that suddenly appears. It is something that is built through movement. And the longer you wait for it, the further you drift from the very growth that would create it. The truth is simple and uncomfortable at the same time. You will not feel ready when it matters most. You will feel uncertain, stretched, and exposed. And that is exactly where transformation begins. Every significant step forward requires you to move before you have full clarity, before you have complete confidence, before you have every answer figured out. Because if you had all of those things, the step would not require courage. It would not challenge you. It would not change you. The purpose of moving forward is not just to reach a destination. It is to become someone capable of handling it. And that version of you is shaped through action, not hesitation. When you wait for readiness, you often disguise fear as preparation. You tell yourself you need more time, more information, more certainty. But in reality, what you are seeking is comfort. And comfort rarely leads to growth. It keeps you in familiar patterns, repeating the same routines, producing the same results. Movement, on the other hand, disrupts that cycle. It introduces uncertainty, yes, but it also creates opportunity. It opens doors that cannot be seen from a place of stillness. There is a moment in every journey where you have enough to begin, even if it does not feel like enough. You have learned enough. You have experienced enough. You have thought about it long enough. And at that point, the next step is not about gathering more. It is about trusting what you already have. Because clarity does not come before action. It comes from action. Each step reveals the next. Each decision sharpens your direction. And each experience builds your confidence in a way that thinking alone never can. You must also accept that moving before you feel ready means you will make mistakes. You will face setbacks. You will encounter moments where things do not go as planned, but those moments are not signs that you should have waited. They are part of the process that strengthens you. They teach you what works and what does not. They refine your approach. And most importantly, they prove to you that you can handle more than you initially believed. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to act despite it. And every time you choose to move forward, even when you feel uncertain, you build that courage. You expand your capacity. You begin to trust yourself more deeply because you are no longer relying on perfect conditions. You are relying on your ability to adapt, to learn, and to keep going. There will always be reasons to wait, reasons that sound convincing, reasons that feel safe, but there will also be a quiet voice within you that knows it is time to move. That voice does not demand perfection. It asks for willingness. It asks for a step. And that step, no matter how small, creates momentum. Momentum that builds confidence, confidence that fuels consistency, and consistency that leads to results. When you look back, you will not regret the moments when you moved too early. You will grow from them. You will learn from them. But the moments you will question are the ones where you stayed still, where you allowed doubt to delay you, where you chose comfort over possibility. Because those are the moments where potential remains unrealized, and the only way to unlock that potential is to move before everything feels certain, to trust before everything is visible, to act before everything makes sense, because the path is not revealed to those who wait. It is revealed to those who walk. Leadership is not something reserved for a select few. It is not defined by titles, positions, or public recognition. It begins the moment you decide to take responsibility for your direction, your actions, and your impact. You were not created to move through life simply reacting to what others are doing. You were created to think, to act, and to stand with intention. And the moment you recognize that, you begin to shift from following paths to creating them. Following is easy. It requires less risk, less resistance, less accountability. You can blend in, adapt to expectations, and avoid standing out. But in doing so, you also limit your potential. Because when you follow blindly, you disconnect from your own voice. You begin to measure your worth based on comparison. You start adjusting your vision to fit into spaces that were never designed for you. And over time, you lose clarity on who you truly are and what you are capable of becoming. Leadership demands something different. It asks you to trust your perspective even when it is not widely accepted. It requires you to move forward even when others hesitate. It challenges you to hold your ground when it would be easier to conform. And that can feel uncomfortable, because standing out often comes with scrutiny. It comes with questions, with doubt, with moments where you feel like you are walking alone. But those moments are not signs that you are off track. They are signs that you are stepping into a role that requires courage. To lead is to go first. Not because you have all the answers, but because you are willing to find them. It is about taking initiative when others wait. It is about making decisions when others delay. And most importantly, it is about being accountable for the outcomes. Leadership is not about control, it is about responsibility. It is about understanding that your actions influence more than just your own results. They set a tone, they create a standard. They show others what is possible. There's also a deeper level to leadership that often goes unnoticed. It is the ability to lead yourself. Before you can guide others, you must be able to guide your own thoughts, your own habits, your own discipline. Because without self-leadership, external leadership becomes unstable. You cannot inspire consistency in others if you do not practice it yourself. You cannot demand focus if you are easily distracted. And you cannot build trust if your actions do not align with your words. When you step into leadership, you also give others permission to do the same. Your courage becomes an example. Your discipline becomes a standard. Your willingness to take risks becomes a signal that growth is possible. And that influence is powerful. Not because you are trying to impress anyone, but because you are showing what it looks like to live with intention. There will always be pressure to conform, to follow trends, to choose the safer path. But those paths rarely lead to meaningful impact. They lead to comfort, to predictability, to outcomes that are already defined by others. Leadership, on the other hand, creates new possibilities. It challenges norms, it pushes boundaries, and it opens doors that did not exist before. You do not need permission to lead. You do not need to wait until you feel completely confident. You do not need a perfect plan. What you need is a decision to trust yourself, a decision to take responsibility, a decision to move forward even when the path is uncertain. Because leadership is not something you become after years of experience, it is something you practice. In every moment you choose courage over comfort, clarity over confusion, and action over hesitation. And in doing so, you stop living as a reflection of others and start living as a force that shapes direction.